In an ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. Today I have the opportunity to have a conversation with Charlie Riley, who has been in marketing and various roles for over 22 years, both in digital and traditional marketing and public relations campaigns, email marketing, and multi or omnichannel marketing campaigns. So, Charlie, I'm really excited to have you here and talk about what you're getting into in this crazy dynamic time that we're in.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Emanuel.
Yeah, you betcha. So you've been in the marketing world long enough to remember time when we didn't even have real serious internet activity like we do now, haven't you?
I do. I do remember that. And what's the ironic thing is I now work for OneScreen.ai, and we work with brands to bring out-of-home advertising to their marketing mix, which usually includes billboards, transit ads. So it's an old school category or medium, but it's actually pretty new school in the terms of how we go about measurement and planning using a lot of data and resources. So I do remember that world, and it's kind of coming full circle for me.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you're bringing this kind of the billboard and out of home type ads, and I'm interested to know how you're doing attribution and getting some of the closing the loop for those of us who've got to produce those KPIs for clients or for internal teams.
Yeah, so out of home has come a long way in terms of not just being a brand play. It really is a performance channel, and we've seen a lot of brands, both B2B and B2C and D2C, find solutions that complement their digital marketing. And the attribution or the measurement is very similar to how they measure digital, and we do it in a different way because our ads are in the real world and you can't turn them off, which is a nice complement to digital. So there's a couple ways that we go about doing it. Each of our campaigns and each of our we build it specifically for their overall marketing goals. So it's not just here's a billboard campaign. It's what are you trying to accomplish? Are you driving leads to your website that you need to track as a D2C brand all the way through to sales? Is it a download? Is it if you're a B2B brand with a longer sales cycle? Is it lead gen or brand recognition, or is it client or customer appreciation campaigns? But what we essentially do is everyone has a mobile device, and there's a mobile ID attached to those devices that's anonymous. But there are enough demographics that an individual shares, where what we do is we create what's called a view shed. So around each ad that we strategically place through data-driven strategy around where they're trying to get the most impressions, we'll geofence a location around each of those ads and where they are. And so when someone passes through that, if that's driving in a car past the billboard, or if that's a transit ad, and they're within the vicinity of that, and we can identify that mobile ID, we're able to track that. We can pixel that their site. So if it's a landing page, if it's a sales conversion page, we could track that conversion all the way through to close one business if it's a sale. So there's a lot of ways that we can help a marketer really identify the specific individuals, not knowing their names. It's anonymous, but we can help them identify those personas and those ICPs that actually converted. So that's one way we can do it. You see some out-of-home mediums that have a QR code on it. So that's another way to track.
Yeah.
And we could do some brand lift studies and such. We'll use control groups to be able to see who was exposed to ads and who were not, and then what sort of lift we delivered with those. So there's a number of ways that out of home can be measurable, and it can have attribution in a very similar way that digital channels do. It really comes down to what the overall goals are.
Sure. Yeah, I love it. So you're helping to guide your advertisers to sending people to a specific landing page or a certain site, and then be able to start at the top of the funnel and identify it from there. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, just like any other campaign, you wouldn't send someone to a homepage and hope that they find what you want them to do. You're going to drive them towards a path. Again, it really comes down to what the goals are. Some campaigns, it's for brand play. It's for, we know that we within a market, we use out of home for some customers. That's a true ABM play where we can help them plot where their top 50 prospects are, and we can buy out of home. It's either, billboards outside. You could have a mobile truck right outside their headquarters. Yeah. We can map paths of where we think that their executives would be traveling into work. So it really depends on what that attribution is. But yes, we want to send them to a place where it's trackable, and we're delivering the end result of what that advertiser wants them to see, and not just, like I said, sending them to a homepage and hoping they find what they want them to deliver.
Yeah, I love that. You guys can really help with the I see you everywhere part of what you want your prospects to say.
Yeah, I think the omnichannel approach that out of home brings definitely can bring that surround sound effect to a brand. We have heard from customers, they say, hey, I see you guys everywhere, and out of home campaigns could be in a similar budget range of a paid search campaign. It really depends on a lot of factors, but that omni-channel presence of being where the prospects are driving to work, to play, to the gym after work, but they're seeing those ads there. They're seeing them. They're seeing their digital ads. The nice part about what we can do with those mobile IDs is we can use those mobile IDs to retarget back to those personas. So you truly do get a surround sound effect of, I just saw those billboards, and then I was served up retargeting ads. And so there is a bigger presence of, wow, you guys are everywhere, when, that might not actually be the case in terms of their and how much they're spending on a budget, but it definitely amplifies, especially, and it sort of negates this digital ad fatigue that I think a lot of brands are starting to see. We're inundated with email. We get, bombarded with social media, paid ads. You can't turn out of home off. And so even if it's subconsciously seeing that brand on a billboard on the way somewhere else or in a transit ad, it resonates, and it stays there, and it helps with the number of impressions that need to be there when someone wants to take action when they're ready for it.
Yeah, that's powerful. What is the kind of the AI part of what you guys are doing? How are you leveraging this kind of dynamic learning, that machine learning that's happening?
Yeah, it's really, it's one of those questions. It's like, how do billboards use AI? The aggregation of the campaigns that we run and that we do for across the board, and in different markets, we have a ton of data. We use, really probably hundreds of data sources to be able to identify retail data, like purchase data for D2C brands. We can use, like I said, for a conference, we can use data knowing that, say they're flying into Dallas or Chicago for a conference, someone might be going into Midway versus O'Hare, and we have the data to be able to help them understand if you're going to do billboards at the luggage, the baggage claim, you probably don't want to be in the one that people aren't going to be flying into. But we use a lot of data to be able to help identify the right places of where audiences may be. Another resource that we're using AI for is to help on the creative side, because out of home is a mix of science and art. And the science part is the strategy, using the data sources to place ads in the right place in the right locations, but also measure it. But then there's the creative side. You need your ad needs to stand out. It needs to be somewhat bold sometimes. But you can't use too many words. You can't have a really long URL string when someone's going by it possibly quickly. They're not going to remember that. So we use a tool to help our advertisers suggest basically a score of, hey, you might want to move the logo on the left-hand side to the right-hand side because you're on a right-hand read. You're on the same side as traffic versus on the opposite side. Or you're using too many words, you might want to shorten that and you'll have a better impact. So we're using tools like that and using AI to help advertisers create better creative. And we've seen some of our advertisers, I think about 30%, they've adjusted their creative based on those suggestions. And so they're getting better at telling their story in a succinct way. And we're helping to deliver that creative in the locations that we've strategically picked for them.
That's cool. How much of what you're doing is on like on digital screens versus a fixed piece of a billboard or something?
Yeah, that's a great question. A high percentage, because digital out of home, the benefits of digital out of home are that you can have an ad running in hours. You can change the creative. And so we see a great deal of that. And it really depends on, some cities have adapted or adopted digital screens more than others. But static billboards, the ones you typically see on the side of throughways or highways, those have a place too. And there's a longer lead time, but wow, do those things stand out? And so what we usually do with a client or a customer is we'll look at, again, we ask them a lot of questions. What are your overall marketing goals? Where are you trying to, what does your ICP look like? And usually the plans that we create have a pretty healthy mix of digital out of home, programmatic out of home. It might be in bars. It might be in restaurants. It might be, the Link New York City, those executions there. And then it might be a mixture of static ads as well. So usually it's a healthy mix of those, but we have over 1.2, I think, million pieces of inventory that we can use across the country. So, there's no shortage of opportunities or executions. It really depends on what someone wants to do and where they want to do it.
And is this a program that's in reach for like a small regional chain of health clubs or restaurants, or is it really for e-com and bigger national brands?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of the hard answer is there's a lot of factors that go into what an out-of-home campaign costs and the efficiency of it. If you want to do campaigns in San Francisco and New York, that's going to be pretty expensive because those are the top tier markets. Yeah, big markets, huge reach. That's going to, and it really depends. Like for the certain types of campaigns, we're either going to recommend a 4-week flight, a 3-month flight, a shorter flight. It really depends on what the goals are. Conferences can be, it's usually, it could be a 2 or 4 day execution. So if they're in secondary cities though, you can see some really good cost efficiencies when it comes to if you've planned out ahead of time. Now, if you are trying to run a campaign next week, there might be limited inventory. We might actually tell you no because we don't think it's going to be as effective. So, budget is obviously a factor there. It's not going to, it's a medium that there's a lot of variables that go into it on the types of the executions you want, the timing it is. Like if you're trying to run Super Bowl ads in New Orleans, it's going to probably cost you a good amount of money. If you're in a secondary market and you're a regional player, there's good executions there that it might make sense for you. So it really depends. And that's where, we work with a wide range of companies from small startups to, Fortune 500 companies that it's going to be different for each of them. And, it might not be a good fit for you, but for a lot of brands, it is a great complement to what they're doing on the digital spends. And in some cases, it could look like or cost about the same as maybe a paid search campaign or a paid social campaign. A lot of variables with it, but it's one of those things that I think if you sell to the right audience and a wide enough audience that your product or service fits with a big enough geographic audience, out of home is probably a really good channel for you.
Yeah. Well, let me switch gears a little bit into where fantasy is meeting reality, and how close do you think we are to combining biometrics and individual people, and being able to dynamically change ads, like kind of Minority Report style, with what we saw in the movies? Is that something that you think we'll see, or is that just purely fantasy fiction?
There, there's a lot of things that would need to go right to see that happen at scale.
Yeah,
And I think with privacy, that might make that harder and harder as people realize, like, and that's something that we take very seriously. Like I talked about with mobile IDs or maids.
yeah,
Um, we don't know who that individual is, and that's, we don't want to know that because that's a privacy thing. I think that there's a lot of factors that would go into the access that someone has, the scale of creativity that you would need to have like the breadth of creative assets ready to go to align with that. Because if you don't get that right, it's pretty easy for someone to know right away that, like, that's not geared towards me.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think, like, the movies do a really good job of maybe getting some cool ideas out there, but I think there are variable ways that, we work with some brands that they'll do customer appreciation campaigns, and they'll rotate creative of their customers and their headshots, and they've done that in New York City, or they've done that on mobile trucks. Like,
Yeah.
that's to a scale that, like, you can rotate digital out of home pretty quickly, to get to a point where you're identifying somebody with a camera and knowing enough about them to serve them a really targeted ad. I don't know if we're ready for that from a privacy standpoint, but
Yeah, I would agree. The privacy standpoint is what keeps it from happening. I think the machines are capable of that level of specificity, though, don't you?
they probably are. I think, I don't know, from the AI is incredible in terms of what is, from an efficiency standpoint, it can deliver, but I think there's still a little bit of ways to go when it comes to the proper messaging and uh, talking like a human would talk. And,
Yep.
I think the sniff test for a lot of people when they see ads goes, people can see through that quite a bit. And maybe I'm just more attuned to it because as a marketer, it's like I can maybe see through that a little bit more. But
Yeah.
uh, I think the ability there for machines could probably do it. I think the creative part still has there's something to be there's some work to go with that.
Yeah, no, thanks for going on that little charade with me. I appreciate it. So if a marketer or a CEO is thinking about doing this kind of out of home campaign, what are two or three things they need to think about before they, really talk to somebody like you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it comes down to, like any campaign, like, what are your overall goals? Because some people we work with, it is a brand execution. They want to look bigger. They want to tell a creative story, and they're not as worried about the measurement. Some we work with is very strictly about measurement, and they're going to treat out of home in a very similar way that they do with digital. So really having a good grasp of what you want to accomplish with out of home, it needs to fit into your overall marketing mix. It shouldn't just be looked upon as a secondary channel. So it should tie into, how does the creative look on digital? Are you advertising in the same locations, and can you measure that the right way, or do you have the right steps in place to be able to do that? So those are a couple of things that I think that a marketer or an executive would want to think about. Um, I think they need to know, it's there is a science and art to it. I think it's not so much as like, oh, that's a cool billboard, or we'd like to do that. There's a science to having the right data sources to be able to pick from the vast inventory that there is, because they could go direct to one of these large companies that owns a lot of outdoor inventory,
Yeah.
but they're going to be limited with what they get because of what they own. Or they could work with a local or a regional ad agency who might do some out of home media buying, but they may not have the measurement part to it. So I think they just need to, if you're thinking about out of home, it's a great channel that complements digital. You just have to know what your overall goals are. And you have to think about like the process that goes into doing it well, just like you would do any other, how you'd plan, execute, and measure any other marketing channel.
I love it. Yeah. We always got to pay attention to the fundamentals before we go writing checks, right?
Yeah, it's kind of there's a reason there's a big industry that's specifically focused on out of home advertising. If you've never worked with out of home before, it can be time consuming. You might not have the access to data. The measurement side, if you don't know how to do that, can be it could be like any other channel. There could be waste if you don't execute that properly. So it's a lot of companies, they outsource SEO because there's expertise in that. They outsource different channels. So out of home could be looked upon in the same way.
Yeah, I got you. Well, if you go ahead and take care of your dog, that's probably getting some Amazon packages right now,
huh? It's no matter what, whenever I'm on a call, there's always a delivery. So they're excited.
No problem. Well, Charlie, I appreciate your time. If people are interested in having a conversation with you about this, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, check out OneScreen.ai. A lot of great resources there in terms of how to get started. Just what questions to ask, what to think about. So a lot of great out of home ideas there from campaigns we've run. So OneScreen.ai, or I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if someone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, be happy to answer any questions, or just even just chat about marketing in general. But this specific area of focus is what is really all we do. So we'd love to talk about out of home. So hey, I'm happy to chat with any marketer.
All right. Well, again, I appreciate you taking time to chat with me today, and look forward to seeing what else you guys develop as things continue to progress. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. You have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.